My name is Ruth Redmond. I've been a comic book colorist for over 10 years now. Today I'm going to be showing you this cover that I did for Marvel for their Women of Marvel Annual 2023. It is drawn by Corin Howell, who is an artist that I really like. She has such beautiful, clean artwork, and that is right up my alley. I love being able to do shiny renders and cute little details and stuff. So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of roughly go through my process. I don't have a time lapse of it. I just have me going through my Photoshop file and explaining my workflow and how I basically did certain effects. Alrighty, so let's get started. So here I have this black and white version of the image that we'll be coloring. This is the inks that are sent to me by Marvel. This cover was drawn by Corin Howell. It was for the Women of Marvel Annual in 2023, I believe. Yeah, I think I colored this like January 2023. I love Corin Howell, love their art. These super clean lines are just a blast of color. I like that they've left this open background for me to interpret. I'm very into this filigree that they've put down here. It's got like a bit of an Art Nouveau thing going on, but I did not choose to go in the direction of Art Nouveau. I went for something much more highly rendered, less of that watercolor thing. So over here, you can see this is what I finally did. This is like the final image, what I did. So let's go back to the beginning with this image. So the first thing that I do when I'm coloring covers like this is I separate the line art from the background. So basically separate the blacks from the white. This is done using alpha channels. Let me know if you want me to do a video on how to do that part, but that's like how we start. And then when I'm done separating the inks from the background so that the inks are their own layer, here I'll show you now. So the inks are their own layer with nothing else behind them. If we isolate them, we can see, these are some effects that I put on. We can see that there are no pixels behind them. So basically I've separated the pixels that are the line art from the rest of the image. So once I've done that, I do my flats. So my flats are a step that you can skip technically. I like to use them to make it easier to make changes, basically, so that if I get a note or something like Marvel are like, that's too bloody or that's too pale or something, I can very easily grab the selection and make the adjustments to that layer. It's basically a way to make my art additive and not have to destroy something if a change needs to be made. I can just like build on top of it. So flats are just these shapes that form, that I make underneath the inks that just separate out that part of, so in this case, her outfit. I use hard edges so that they are easy to grab with the magic wand tool, because the magic wand tool can absolutely be your friend there. So after I've done the flats can be any colors, but usually I start thinking about maybe what kind of colors I might want to do in the flats, but not always. As you can see in this case, I went significantly darker and then added in a lot more gold for the actual colors. I also will, if I'm doing any cell shading, this is where it will happen, is on my color layer. As you can see, I've got it called flats and color. On my color layer is where I'll also put in other hard edges that I can grab. These are what I would call cell shading, like an animation term. Yeah, just the sharp edges that make up the shadows of the image. You could work in either direction, like you could do your highlights your first and then your shadows on top, or you could do your shadows first and then your lighter color on top. It doesn't really matter either way. I also separated each of her like chunks or sections of hair just to make it extra easy to render them. So then a lot of the heavy lifting happens on the gradient layer, for me anyway. So the gradient layer is where I'm going to start putting in my shadows, like where my light is coming from and all that kind of stuff. That's where, yeah, a lot of this heavy lifting goes. So as you can see, I've like already started out rendering out each of the bullets. I've put in some of the definition on the filigree. I've been putting in shadows and some highlights, which like that can get a little bit messy putting all of that on one layer, but I was pretty confident in moving quickly in that when I was doing the guns. So for these blends specifically, I remember that I was using this nice soft brush that I got from Kyle Webster, Big White Softy. And I was going in with my purples and my pinks to, separate where I'm going light, where I'm going dark. And I also blended it to soften it out some more because of the style that I was going for with this book. And a lot of this smoky stuff in the back here is texture brushes that I actually made way back in college. I made these over 10 years ago. I love them. I made them when my very talented friend Emily Lynch was doing this big project of her own where she was creating many textured paper overlay things that she could use in her animations, and like she wanted to be a background artist as well, and is now. She's very successful. And yeah, so I borrowed some of those and turned them into Photoshop brushes instead, and I use them all the time. So here's an old one. I also have, these are some of the ones that I was using here. You can see that they're very textured. Let me put it on a new layer so you can see a little bit better. They're textured, but they're not hard edges. They're very soft. They've got like all these fun bits and bobs going through them. So that's the kind of brushes that I'm using to make this marbly looking texture thingy over here. And yeah, it just creates this nice sort of marble effect, which I thought went nice with all the gold and everything. So that's my gradients layer. You can see there's a lot going on there. I'm laying the foundations of what I want to do. So then the next layer is the brushes, and that's really where I was going in and rendering the skin in particular. And I also was putting, you can see I'm putting highlights on the bullets and on the filigree banners. A lot of this is a nice soft brush like this one, and going in and running it over here, and then using my eraser to take back out the bits that I don't want for the highlight. That's a fun way to do that. I like to do highlights. The skin, this was a few different brushes. This is also a little bit muddy. I would have changed, if I were doing this again, I would use more oranges and pinks, but it still worked out pretty all right. So for this, I was using Big White Softy, Rough Dry Fun is also another one that I love to use for this kind of thing. And yeah, you can see that I'm going in and I'm just like highlighting the anatomy of the face. It can be really easy to completely overdo it on the face, and on this one I maybe even did overdo it slightly, overbaked it. But yeah, that's kind of like a personal choice on like how hard you go with that. So that was my brushes. You can see I'm also like defining out her chest and her neck. I was like building up her belly button and stuff to help add more dimension there. Also in this layer, I've started putting in some rim light on the edges here of her coat. I've just begun to put some more a little more definition into her hair on this layer, but not a whole lot. This layer is definitely not doing a whole lot of heavy lifting necessarily, but it is starting to bring the image together. Then on my multiply layer, that's where I really started to get in on the leather of her outfit. So here we have all the shadows and stuff. I'm following like the natural flow that I would expect the fabric to go through. I am also starting to put in more definition in her hair. And also I will say, when I'm showing you this image, like this is how I'm going through it layer by layer. But when I'm actually working, I'm moving back and forth between these layers, and I'm building in a little bit more of a natural way, but this felt like the easiest way to explain it without, for the fact that I didn't have a time-lapse pre-recorded to show you. So then after the multiply layer, which is just adding in an extra bit of darkness, I have my highlights layer, and this one also does a lot of heavy lifting. So here I've put these soft fuzzy lights on the coat because I wanted it to look quite different from the harder lights on the leather, because the leather you would want sharp defined highlights because that's how that material reflects light. You can see I've put rim lights here on the leather on both sides. I've put like a sharp bright light on one side and then the cool blue in the shadows. These highlights are done using just round brushes, hard round brushes with, here I'll grab one. So a nice hard round brush, maybe with a little bit of an oval shape to it, is often quite helpful. And then up in your brush settings, that's where you want to get into your shape dynamics, which is pen pressure, and transfer will also help a lot with this. Pen pressure, oh, this brush isn't solid. But yeah, making this nice tapery line, that's how you get this kind of effect, and then you just brush it quickly. I use a graphics tablet, a Wacom tablet, not a screen one, just a tablet on my desk here. It's also in this highlights area that I'm highlighting these cool highlights on her hair with the blue. And yes, it's also, yeah. And yeah, I've put in extra highlights on the hair. And then in my inks layer, this is, well, I call it inks and effects because that's where extra little shiny bits go. So yeah, so here I put a little bit of shine on the stock of the gun, the stock. And this is also where I threw in a little signature for myself underneath Corin's name. The inks obviously are there, and Corin's inks are gorgeous, so they are doing a lot of work for me here too. And I also will put a layer above my inks and attach it so that I can color directly onto the inks without actually affecting the inks, so that if, again, I need to make changes and I need to go back, I've got that ready to go and I can get rid of it. And I just use that to put an extra bit of like highlight on the bullets and stuff on this one layer. And then I've got another one on top of that, which is where I put some reds and things in the hair. It's not like a huge amount. I didn't tamper with the inks too much in this picture because they're just great, and I didn't think that was the right move. And then I also put a little bit of a soft light glow. For me, a lot of these like extra effects, I try not to go too hard on them. I don't want to like overpower the inks as much as possible. So yeah, I put this soft light glow, which is just here around her head, giving her like a little bit of a halo. And then I also have this screen layer, which is where I put the glints on the gun, which is like just a nice starry shape. That's the glint on the gun. And I've also like, and they're called soft light and they're called screen because that's what that layer type is called. So you can see this layer is called screen, and you can rotate through these other functions that you can add to the layer to see that they do make differences. But yeah, I went with screen, and I just went in either with a soft brush on some parts or with the glitters for the guns, and just did that extra little bit of punch to make certain things shine more. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope that was a decent explanation of my process. You can see that I build very much in layers. I'm not trying to do a bunch of stuff on one layer just because that makes it really difficult to change things later. Like if Marvel came back and were like, ooh, we don't like that her outfit is red. Obviously it is red. This character wears red. But if it wasn't red and they were like, actually we wanted it to be black, it would be much easier for me to change that with the way that I've built things up. So I could like grab all the leather, I could change the base color in the color layer, I could change the gradient layer by itself, I can change the brushes layer by itself, I can change everything individually, each effect by itself, and that just makes it much easier to stay safe and not have to do so much extra work having to recolor a section just because you want to change the color or the tone of it. So yeah, that's basically how I did it, to go from this black and white image to this nice shiny rendered image. That's basically the process of my colors. So thanks for watching all that. Hope that kind of made some sense to you. If there were things that I just brushed over too fast or didn't make any sense at all, feel free to mention it in the comments, and I can always try and revisit that skill or that brush in another video when I show you a different cover or page that I've colored. The vast majority of my work is sequential art, but I do the occasional covers, which are fun, like this one, quite splashy. If there's some work of mine out there that's already published, feel free to mention it if you would like to see me do a breakdown of how I worked on it. But yeah, that's all for this video. Hopefully see you around soon. Bye! Of this Corin Howell cover. Oh, hello, Waco. Hello, cutie. You coming to interrupt? You want to say hi? Hi. He's a Waco. It's a Waco. You want to come up? Good boy. Hello, buddy. I was just talking to myself. Okay. All right, enough. Down. Good boy. Good boy. Very good.